Welcome back to the Lords of Lore podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Will.
And I am Jack.
Jack, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited to be back.
We're excited to have you. As listeners and watchers will know, we have changed the format of our show a little bit. So we're doing our own personal segments and then opening the floor up for some conversation. But remember, you can check, by this time this video comes out, both our episodes 1 to 3 and episode 4 reviews of the Wheel of Time. You can check that out. Came out last Saturday, and that's the release date. Those will be coming out on in the future moving forward. So every Saturday, as long as Wheel of Time goes on for the next 5 weeks, I think, you can catch an episode of our review on Saturday, and then stay looking out for the Boba Fett series that's coming soon, and all the other fun things we're doing, including the adventures we're running, the D&D games we're playing here on stream. So without any further ado, I guess I'll jump into Matt's meandrous mumblings. Today I want to talk about gender in fantasy. I've been reading some books recently that touch on the binary, mostly between men and women in fantasy. But also I've been lucky enough to read some books that feature non-binary characters or also center on trans characters and non-binary characters, and how they're viewed sort of through the lens of the fantasy world. I thought was interesting to talk about. Obviously, you're looking at, 3 cis dudes here, so with the greatest salt, I guess, but we'll do our best to, shed some positive light on this topic here. But here's one of my things where I had some issues with gender representation in fantasy. So first being, women are often represented mostly in like 3 different ways. One being like the damsel, which we're all probably familiar with. Also probably all familiar with like the sexual deviant villainess. That's a very common trope. And then revenge fuel. So you killed my wife, that's why the story's happening. Or my mother or my sister or my family. But very seldom or not often do we ever see like women get their own story or character growth or development of any sort. They're just sort of there to further serve the plot in the eyes of men. So obviously that's pretty problematic. And then when we talk about like trans non-binary representation in fantasy, I'd say like probably the most problematic thing, there's not enough of it, but also when it does happen, it's always like othering. So you might get a trans or rather a non-binary character, but they're always like an alien or a robot or a race that doesn't represent or doesn't recognize gender. They're never human. So it sort of highlights that there's like this, like humans aren't capable of understanding this. And so we have to use different races to sort of highlight this thing. Are these things, I'm bringing up things that you guys have, experienced while reading fantasy stuff?
I guess I'll go. I wouldn't say so much reading, but I think that how characters are written, maybe like I always find like the best way for like a female, I'm just saying like speaking like, I guess talking like female protagonists is like one of my favorite is I'm forgetting her name. I'm so sorry. From Rogue One. What's her name?
Jyn Erso.
I think that is like a staple center for just like writing a character, because like through that experience, she like it's not really she's like a girl. She's just like someone who's trying to find her father, and through that whole kind of story arc she has, it's not like it doesn't like feel like she's like, oh, like because she's a girl, these are this kind of circumstances he has. So I think like the best thing to do, even just like writing fantasy as well, it feels like the person is like the person, like I guess it wouldn't matter, like the range of like their sexuality or how they identify themselves is like always like a cool topic to bring up. But I find like the best characters they're more focused on like their piece in the story rather than like what their gender is. Not that it's like a bad thing, but I always find it's kind of like even like with a guy, like, or like just some like character who's like macho, just like, oh, I've like read that, I don't really care, like This guy, just like another weird feature to throw in. That's like, not that it's ever a bad thing, but I always find it's just like interesting when I'm reading through, and that's something that pops in my head. I'm like, oh my God, like I love this person. Like they're just doing some cool shit. And I'm like, this is so sick. But it kind of takes away from the character, I think, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Jyn Erso is a pretty great example of like avoiding tropism when you
That's
have
perfect word.
a woman protagonist, because like I think especially telling those stories again, a bunch of cis dudes talking about this, so
Yeah,
but
sorry.
I think it's important that it's like we recognize when those stories are about like human woman characters, like the aspects of being a human woman are sort of being taken into consideration. But when it's something like Star Wars, it's like this character should just be a character, and it should almost be like their gender should almost be irrelevant, because like that sort of sexism isn't always present in other fantasy worlds, because we don't have to carry that same weight of our own society with us when we make these worlds and stuff. So like I think that's one of the benefits of like telling stories where gender is sort of like a main sort of topic, is that when you do it in a fantasy setting, you can sort of flip things on their heads so they're not the exact same way we would see them. Even something like Wheel of Time, where like the power in that story is like women hold all the magical power in that story, and we see like even in that story how like power can corrupt a little bit, and we see like women who are like hunting men. I'm speaking only towards the TV show, but it's sort of interesting to like view things through the lens that's not our own world history, and I think gender is like a really cool way to do that, especially in alternate sort of universes. Will, any initial thoughts on gender and fantasy?
I mean, I guess that, like along the lines of like representation, I think. Well, I think in the past couple of years, there's definitely been a more like a larger trend for like representation, but like a lot of times I've noticed it's like super awkward. Uh, like a I don't know, and I think like kind of just like how you and Jack were just talking about, like how you should just write them as a character and kind of make the gender irrelevant while also having representation is a little bit better. Like I think of like as an example would be like Mass Effect Andromeda. When that dropped a couple of years ago, that was like a pretty big, I guess, conversation. It was a lot of this, maybe less gender, but a little bit more like sexual representation, but like it was also like very like on the nose. Like it was kind of like almost like a marketing thing, which I thought kind of like cheapened it, but I don't know.
Right.
I don't really know how to like word it better.
Yeah, no, I it's sort of a tough topic to navigate, obviously, but I think it's like
I don't want to speak for anyone else.
It's not to say like gender should be irrelevant, but I feel like it's when you put things in the context of like our real world and bring that into fantasy, I almost think like it's almost weird for me that like as a writer you have the ability to create a new world.
Yeah, so,
and so
like
like
normalize it.
Obviously like you shouldn't write utopias if that's not the story you're trying to tell, but like I don't know, sometimes it just feels like
that's the best thing about writing fantasy, man. It's a lot of fun. Like going back to Mass Effect, you could be piping an alien and then piping a dude in the next like cutscene. So it's just like, it's fun, man. You just like you play around with it. It's fun.
Yeah.
As long as it's like as long as the character's good in like any aspect, it's always enjoyable.
Yeah. I think for me, like moving forward, having that sort of representation in fantasy sci-fi is super important. I think the things to look out for, because I think when you get it, when like Will, you were saying, like it feels forced, feels like marketing sometimes. And I feel like those examples are always because it's like either like a studio or like overhead decision being like, we need to have this because this community, we can appeal to this demographic. And they never actually speak to those people. Like, what would you like representation to look like for you? Do you know what I mean? Like if they came to us and we're a bunch of dudes being like, gender is irrelevant, I'm sure like women might be like, those aren't the stories we want to hear. Like we would like to hear what it might be like us in a fantasy universe. So I could certainly, so I think like consultation and trying to represent the community means you need to speak to that community and be given like the pass to represent them, which I don't think happens often enough. And I guess like not having to bind yourself to establish real world gender norms just to be able to tell a story about gender. If people out there want to consume some non-binary or trans fantasy, Pet by Akweke Emezi, The Black Tides of Heaven by G Yang, Dreadnought by April Daniels. Those are some ones you can check out. Also, I have just lost screen here. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I don't know if this is picking up on camera. Really cool book. It's like a retelling of some Chinese myth and stuff like that. And it's got a really cool central character who I guess you could sort of view as a trans character throughout part of the story, and then sort of steps more into the role of like a non-binary character at points. So it's a really interesting book that has to do with gender. It really sort of dives into like the internal monologue of a character who is, experiencing and discovering their gender within themselves. So check that out. Some other books, Last Shot, Star Wars book, has some non-binary characters, as well as Black Sun, Rebecca Roanhorse, really cool story about, pre-Columbian American culture. So check that out as well. But yeah, I will toss over to you now, Jack. What do you got for us today?
All right. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a first experience for me. But I was, I guess like the viewers are listening, I was telling the boys earlier, I purchased an orc starter set for a game called Blackstone. And if people are unfamiliar with Blackstone, it's essentially kind of like D&D, except it comes with the fantasy in the 40K universe, and you build the models. It has like kind of a set structure. You got dice, you got movement, and won't go too much. Everyone's pretty much an expert in that field here. So, but the lore is really cool with it, because Blackstone's essentially these massive ships that come from like decades and decades before kind of you're playing, and they're like hundreds and thousands of years old, and they got like crazy loot from like a different time. And a lot of the stories like based on like chaos and like demons. So you're like fighting through these like levels that are kind of randomized with tiles that you have. It comes with like the set. And then you kind of go through there, and there's like dungeons, and there's a bunch of lore that goes with it. Really cool stuff that even just play. And especially we have a lot of newer guys that in my kind of like rugby club here that are like getting really into it, guys that wouldn't really step into like kind of like the tabletop anything. And they're like really into it now. So it's like, it's cool to bring people into it. But I'm having kind of like this first experience where I wanted to surprise my roommate and build like an entire new kind of Blackstone. So scrap the, I guess it's like lore and kind of like all the dungeons or like dungeons you got to kind of go through, and kind of building my own lore with like the green or like the orcs. So I bought like an entire set, and I'm building and modeling them all up and making new rules for them, and like which is like correlation to like the lore with the orcs, and it's super fun and wacky because they're already a pretty weird race to begin with. Like they're also, I think they're technically non-binary, so it's pretty cool. Like they don't have like sexes. They're fungus. They're essentially spores. Yeah. So like they don't really have a gender. They're just like they're genetically kind of made.
They're just South Londoners. That's it.
Yeah, like they're just monsters. But they're like the way they kind of play like with like in the regular games, it's like silly. Like it feels like someone made the rules up for them, because it's kind of how they are. They're just like a race that has the ability to space travel but doesn't know how to actually put everything together. Just like they just like put machines together and they're like, oh, it kind of works, and just go from there. But the cool part about it is like building the dungeon, and I've never been in a seat or like a position where I'm always played D&D. Like I just like joined in. I never had the ability to kind of like create the atmosphere and like storytelling. So it's really fun. I mean, like I guess I'm opening the field kind of like questionnaires to you guys as well, as like when you have gone through that experience, like what are your kind of like, what are the hardest points in like building a story that's like capturing new and experienced players to kind of like a tabletop setting area?
So this is like your first time running a game.
First time, right?
Yeah.
And this is like still like it's still in the process. So like a lot of the stuff and structure I'm going for is still in the works. But I have to basically, the assumption is I have to have 4 like kind of stronghold missions, which are like the big ones that kind of set the story up. And then I need to have like 5 or 6 different like mini missions or like set piece stuff. So like it can be like the whole tile pieces and like the map's really big and you got to go here to here, or it can be really small corridors that are like having maybe 5 or 6 little small tile pieces, and it's like all close quarters. You have to build the story off the set piece. So like where have you found like the most challenging to like, I guess, like captivate a group of people to like really sell themselves in this?
Yeah. So, you know, because it's sort of like a dungeon crawler, less like an open world sort of, like I'm more used to like the open world sort of sandbox settings, right? But I think the same is true of both type of things, right? Like even if it's just a dungeon crawl, to get the players engaged, you have to make the characters the most interesting part of the story.
Because I was gonna do voices. I'm like,
well, yeah, but not even like the NPCs, like the actual player characters. Like, so there has to be something that they can engage with on a personal level, like that only their character can engage with. You know, whatever the backstory for that character might be, there's got to be something small in each part of this dungeon, or maybe in like these 4 strongholds. If you're running for like 4 players, there's something that only their character can do or would know about based off their backstory, based off their class or whatever, however the game works. Because it's those sort of things where it's like, yeah, you can work as a team and get through the whole thing, but then, you know, you might get somebody who sort of takes lead of the group, and then everybody sort of, you know, sinks back into just like rolling dice and drinking beers. Like, so you want something where like everybody has their thing to go in. So, you know, if your classes are like distinct enough, you're not all just a variation of like a fighter, say in the D&D terms, but there's something in my backstory that when I see this glyph or this control panel, if it's, you know, 40K, that like only I know how to access that, or I recognize the symbol painted on the wall, and then I can like, oh, actually I can tell people about this. So now like you're not just a player in the game, you're a character in the story, and the things you know are actually going to progress the game. So I think it's like working with people to like not overwhelm them with like making a backstory for their character, but give me something so that I can take that little nugget you give me and then I can make a whole story around it, type of thing.
See, like I've only ran a couple of games like D&D, but I am a complete like control freak. So like if you're playing in my game, like I am God, like I make the decisions. Like you're in my jungle and that's it. But usually like I think a couple of months ago I was playing with like a group, and there was about like 6 or 7 people, so it was like fairly large.
Yeah.
And there was like 1 or 2 people who actually have had experience, I guess, like role playing. So like, but like I the way I did the characters was yeah, like what you said, Matt, like have everyone be like a specialist in some way, but I would like openly like break the fourth wall, be like, Mage, what are you doing? Yeah, like because like they were usually like someone who had like the mage role, but like they had no idea, like I guess like they've never done like role playing and stuff like that, so they were kind of a bit like shy, I guess. But I usually just like openly be like, what are you doing now? Yeah, like because like yeah, like the way I see it is like, for example, like we would have like the group like kind of have a discussion, then move forward or something like that. And so like there were a few times where like some party of the members would like scout up ahead, but then I'd like pause the game and I'd be like, what are you guys doing right now as they're doing this? So like I guess like constantly trying to like engage people, and force them to do it.
To that point too, like I would never lock the story progression behind a role, right? Like you can like say we have to get past this door, for example, in order to get to the next part of the story. There might be like a few different ways we can go about, like if the door is closing and we fail the check to slide under the door really cool, then maybe somebody grabs the door and they're holding it up and that takes a roll. But if there's a way that we can fail and then not be able to progress, then that sort of kills the game. And then everyone sort of just stood there with their hands in their pants, like, I don't know what to do. I tried the investigation already. It didn't work, you know?
What do you want from me, God? What do you want from me?
Yeah. So like also, it was kind of a spur of the moment with that particular game. So like I didn't really have that much time to like come up with a backstory. It was like, hey, what are you guys doing tomorrow night?
Yeah.
So I was like making everything up on the fly. And that was probably the hardest thing, was like coming up with alternatives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because like I had like the DM book. It was like the D&D like starter thing, like the Fan Delver mine.
Yeah.
And like I was just like flipping through and I was like, I guess that NPC is gonna die, or like I just like, yeah. So like, but yeah, like definitely having alternate routes and stuff like that. Like, yeah. So like people could always like, I guess, engage and use their talents, so it's not always like the same person who's doing it.
Yeah. You want like, not only can like their character sheet let them do things in the game, like actually like physical like progression when we're talking about like minis and stuff like that, and like, you know, they're rolling, but also like give them a reason to care. So, you know, maybe at the end of the dungeon is someone they fucking love, or it's been captured or whatever the case, and, you know, change that however you see fit. But like, you know, I think having a reason for the player to care, as well as giving them the abilities to actually change the world around them, that's how you sort of get like engagement.
Yeah, because like it's really cool with the I guess like that how the template of the just Blackstone Fortress is in general when you're playing it. You have like a die that's kind of like your centralized. Everyone has like your kind of like dice for movement, yada yada. But there's like a Blackstone dice, and it's like kind of like an event where like if you kill a certain section of enemies, you can roll the Blackstone and they reinforce. So it's like if they hit a certain number gap, that number of player, like that number of the unit will come back. And
wow.
it's really cool because like I did like a mini one. I did like a Tau like sniper that I introduced, and I built like a player sheet for him. And I did like put a bunch of like customize them, and like with that I had to like make kind of like a mini, like we had to like rescue him, and it was fun because you could do like little like doors and gateways that one player has to sit up, and like everyone has to go into this room, and so you like kind of cut the teams in half a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just like having the kind of like roll and shoot mechanic where you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna start blasting rounds off in this hallway, and especially with a bunch of greenskins just hitting the corner, like I'm blasting. Little Danny DeVito just sitting in front, big Colts just popping down the corridor. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited, man. Like, and like the orc set for painting wise is like here. I haven't got them, but I have like a couple main guys here. Hope it looks good, but I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude, there's that's just the captain. This is my big boy. This is the war boss.
Man, it's funny when you say orc, I pictured goblins for some reason.
Yeah, well, like they have like they're called like the snotlings or little goblins, and so like
Grots.
But they're like I was aggressive. Sorry, I came to that mic heavy. But it's fun because like there's like the little ones you can get, the little goblins. They can go around, and I was thinking about like them like stealing objectives or moving them around like deeper into like the fortress. You have to like what's oh my god, what's the for the little thing from Dark Souls, the little lizard thing that you had to hit for to get like Titanite shards.
Like a crystal lizard?
Yeah, crystal lizard just sneaking around the treasure, just walking away from you. You gotta catch that. Gotta catch that little crystal lizard. So yeah, man, I'm excited for that. So it's something that's on the works right now, and when it's finished, I can't. Especially the army, I can't wait to show it off. It's like a new paint for me, so it's like a whole different system and shading. And
it's the army that you're painting for this. Is this like the NPC like bad guys your squad's going up against, or are they the people?
Well, like I can actually play the combat patrol pack. I can like 100% play. Like pretty much comes like it's like 100. It's like $180, and then I got a couple other like models as well. So it was like $230, but pretty much like full set army can play like most like my points will be enough to like play like full matches. Like I have like a full chaos one that we've used for Blackstone as well. And I think I might buy like a Lord of the Rings set. I think for Christmas price. Dude, I like it. Nice. Yeah, dude. I was thinking like the Eastern men, bro, because they're such a sick little model to paint. And I was because like not this is connected, but Mike, he's a carpenter, my roommate. He's like a big like painter as well. He got me into it, but we were thinking about doing like design pieces, like do like little miniature for like movie designs, like or movie sets and tables. We thought that would be such a cool idea. And you do like kind of like a glass case, and you put like do like a Lord of the Rings scene or something like that for somebody, and you put it in like the table and like fill it up. We were just like, oh, we should totally do that.
So sick, yeah.
So sick, dude. So sick.
Little Helm's Deep in the coffee
yeah,
table.
bro. Is this all you could muster? Oh yeah, but that's pretty much it, man. That's what's going on for me right now. And yeah, it was cool. I just wanted to bring that to the table, and two experts in the conversation.
Experts.
Dude.
Well, yeah, you'll have to let us know how it went next time.
Absolutely, man. Definitely.
What army do you usually use? Is it just chaos only, or?
Yeah, I mean, I this will be my second army, so I only had a chaos army that I could play with. But now, yeah, now they got the orcs. Like I was thinking about maybe getting like a small space marine pack, and we can do like kind of like smaller combat patrols with like all three of the races. And then Mike's got like another chaos set as well, so we can do kind of like enough for if we wanted to bring in like a third or fourth party, we have a table big enough to do it, so it'd be like fun to do. But I just got like not that I also connected, but I got like Total War Warhammer 2, and oh my god, I've just been crushing that. Absolutely sitting there. It's enough to get my young heart beaten.
Go Grey Knights for life.
Yeah, baby.
So how does Blackstone work though? Is it like you have a group of people that you're running the game for? Do they play one character each, or do they play?
Yeah, so like the characters, anyone can play any character. So you like build off the character. So there's like every time you complete a mission, there's like a reward and money currency you can get. Spend it on cards that can give you like better gear, better stats. But it's not like game changing where your character like. I mean, there are some like unique weapons that you get, and you're kind of like, well, I'm like really hard to kill. But everything's very balanced where it's mostly depending on your rolls. Like if you can't roll and you can't hit, like, you know, you're kind of like suck. So, and the cool thing is that when a character dies, you're just regardless of where it is, if a character dies, we like reset the entire thing. So it really keeps it cool because like some characters get like really good, and then someone comes in and like excommunicados, like no bueno, now we take all the cards away, you reset your like original stats, which is but the game's not like built, it's just like built around like how good are you in dice, like can you hit those hits. And sometimes like last night we had it was on Sunday, we were playing a game with a guy named Alex, and we were like pretty close to like all dying, and it was like fuck, that was tough. That was wow.
Have either of you ever been in a TPK?
TPK?
Like a total party kill?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. We did one where we actually didn't even count the game because it was so fast. We were all baked one night, and we were sitting there and we like pulled. It was like kind of like an ambush, and it had like, and then like with the ambush you like get like randomized enemies, and we got like an HQ like Chaos Lord, all Chaos Space Marines would like hit like a truck, and like you're just normal people, right, in the universe. So, like these guys are like absolute machines running around the map just shooting you from like God knows where. Yeah, we all died like fourth or fifth turn in, and we're like, wow, are we counting that? And we're like, oh no, I didn't see it. So it's the only time we were kind of like, okay, that's fair. That was bad. Yeah, we all of us died. It was bad.
Yeah, we had I remember one time it was like one of the only other times I ever like DM'd a game for D&D, and there was like one guy in the group, he could not like roll to pass a single check. It was insane. Like statistically it didn't make sense. Like he couldn't get above 10 on anything. Like it was nuts. Like I don't think he hit a single person, but he was like supposed to be like the tank of the group.
Oh no.
Yeah, like he was just like a generic fighter who just like couldn't fight. And then like
that's a good character.
Like he was an absolute pacifist. It was weird because then like you get like schmirked at like every single encounter, and then like like it was supposed to be like total party kill, but
did you judge him? Did you judge him really hard?
Oh, I did.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see. I would be kind of scared to like not perform well in any type of dice rolling in front of you. I feel like it'd be a very intense moment. You have a look. I don't think you look at me to be like.
Yeah, Will actually rolls really well in our D&D game.
Yeah. Mind you, that's because
Fucking
I'm playing as a bard.
Yeah.
But-
Just
Yeah,
Comes
no,
with, comes with his own dice set, sets it up on the table. Just like, oh, I mean, business.
Yeah, it's all loaded too, weighted.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that was insane. So like we had to get rid of the party kill, but like that's definitely like what I would prefer to play, because if you die IRL, you die in fantasy.
Yeah, I've definitely had characters in my games die. I've definitely had my own characters die a couple times. It sucks, but it's part of the game. And then you get to make a new character.
Yeah, it was a long game too. Like it was like 5 hours, and it was like, what the fuck, man? Like,
oh,
just
dude,
like,
I'm talking characters who have died after like you played them for like a year, and then you get one bad roll, and now the dragons got you pinned and die in hellfire.
just don't fight
Yeah, man.
dragons.
And it's not Shrek 1, bro. You're not marrying the
No.
dragon. Look.
I had yeah, you
You
remember
roll for
Rhubar?
that?
Rhubar was he played my game. He had a couple characters die, to be fair, but one of his characters died because he refused to leave another character behind. And then they both just ended up getting murdered by a like a Baylor or something.
Oh
One of the
my.
like very high level demons. They just got wrecked.
Yeah, I would be running, man. I'd be dropping anybody. Hits
Yeah,
that
he was
No.
running away and he like jumped off his wolf and was like, I won't leave him. I was like,
I'll come
"Okay."
back and get you. I'll come back and,
Oh, I'll leave him without you. Smirked.
as I'm riding on my wolf, I'll give you like out the door.
Yeah, but because it was like such like a cool like scene, I guess you could call it. He missed a couple of his rolls, but as the DM, I was just like, it hits. I just like fudged the dice rolls a little bit just so he could die cool.
Yeah,
Just getting spanked, man. Just getting spanked.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
it was funny because like the other party members were like getting upset because the guy couldn't roll, so they like started killing him too. Because like once they...
No, that's fucked up.
No, fuck that guy, bro. Did he play, like, was he new to like D&D? Just, or like,
he was new, but he was like super like active. Like he was like he was like he was definitely like in the conversation the whole time. He just
okay.
had like probably the worst luck I've ever seen in my life. Like
The character is not meant to be bad.
like 1 out of a million chats to like fuck up, but he did it like 20 times. So
Damn, man.
yeah, it was whack, and we were all using the same pair, like set of dice as well. So
Oh, so yeah, it wasn't even just like he got the bum pair.
Yeah,
he had
he
no
just-
excuse.
terrible.
You didn't have the
luck.
heart of the cards, man. You didn't have the heart of
Yeah.
the cards.
He had bad fingers. That's all.
All right, well, what do you got for us today? Bad fingers.
Bad fingers, man. Your fingers are bad. Yeah. So not gonna lie, I actually had a lot of like ideas. I just couldn't like articulate them. That was pretty usual.
That's a you thing for sure.
Lay it on us, man. Just give us it all.
But like I want to do a little bit of throwback that you kind of mentioned earlier was one of the things as I was sitting here pondering, wondering why a certain thing for this segment is I mean like see like when I think of like I guess just like fantasy in general, I usually see it as like starting points for a lot of like I guess authors / would be authors, and like see the thing about like fantasy is like it's a fantasy, you can like make it whatever you want, right? But I was kind of like wondering, and I was also thinking about our fabled first episode on tropes was like why is like what when you have so much breadth to make something and create a world, I was kind of wondering why people always fall back onto tropes when doing fantasy. So yeah, that was my question.
No, I
was pondering.
I do think it's good. If I had to give like a simplified answer up top, I think it's just because it's easy and it's proven. It's like if you get into a slump with your writing, insert trope here, and you know how these tropes are supposed to play out, or you might look like a genius for subverting the expectations of said trope. So it's just like, a plug and play sort of element. Like, like we're talking about setting up like a D&D game. Sometimes if I'm crunched for time and trying to put a session together, I might just go online and type in good D&D one shot and then just change all the flavored elements to fit in my own world, even if they are
nice
cliche.
Keep the spice, just change the meat.
Exactly.
Good
Yeah, I don't know, Jack, what do you think?
honestly, man, yeah, I think it's weak, like make the character. Don't be especially if you're writing fantasy. I mean, like there's just so much stuff to go for, so many things to make your own. There's no rules to it in any fashion. If you're doing like anything, I mean, not that comparing it to, but if you're doing like anything like somewhat historical to, like our world or whatever, like you have to kind of follow like a guideline. Fantasy, like there's no guideline. Like it's all just absolutely out there. It's up to your creativity. So it's sometimes it just feels, I mean, maybe it's also too when you're watching any type of show as well. I find when you have like a character that just kind of, they're just written to for the sake of being like something there. And I feel like maybe not on this topic, but just in general, like it sucks. You're just like, I don't like this character at all. Like, it's tough. It's tough sometimes. I mean, you see it like any type of fantasy. It's just something that always seems to play out. It is cool to be unique. It is cool, but sometimes it's just better just to tell the character story rather than trying to put it in a category. It's fun like that.
Yeah, and like also keep my background, the unkindled. Like
put that fire away, son. Auga.
I mean, yeah, because like I've kind of got back into the Dark Souls just because Elden Ring's coming up, maybe eventually.
You're gonna talk about the Elden Ring. I was getting pizzazz. I was like, here's finally somebody that gets me.
And then but like yeah, like one thing. So like my goal about a year ago was to like beat all the Dark Souls in a row and then do like Bloodborne and then Sekiro, but then that just like never happened because that's just
Sekiro
started playing NHL, be a pro instead.
Yeah, he's got the NHL
hours of season mode. Just
beating Gretzky's goal record.
Put Alexander Wenberg at like 60 points in 25 games. But
got Woodford 99 in the back, bro. He's playing for the boys.
Yeah. Anyways, Dark Souls, because like the intro is pretty much the same as with like at the start of all three of the games. It's you always have this unknown character that basically just has an objective, but it's almost like a blueprint. But like mind you, like I love it the way that Dark Souls because it works. But same thing with like Elder Scrolls as well. Like there's always like this like starting point, but it's always just like consistently the same, which I always thought was like kind of strange. And like to be honest, that's why I kind of liked Bloodborne and Sekiro, is just because it's a little bit more different. I mean, like Sekiro is much more narrative styled, but like it's kind of like the same for like a lot of fantasy series and like video games that I've noticed. Like that trend from a few years ago in video game characters where there's always like a dude with a bald head on the cover.
He's got a bald head.
And like I don't know, that's what I always thought was kind of funny. Like it's kind of like hard to find fantasy that's like unique, and I think that's why I don't really like read as much, I guess, like unheard stuff, because like it's kind of like there's like I'm already expecting all these tropes and stuff like that. Like I guess like kind of like Wheel of Time with the first episode, it was kind of like telling the same story that we see all the time.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of like to me a bit of a juxtaposition, like when you have a genre that's defined as being whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, I mean there's absolutely like tropes I love that happen in fantasy. Like the ancient waiting evil. It's evil that we locked away forever, because it's sort of like
it comes out of the tomb. It comes out of the tomb.
Yeah.
Like,
Somebody broke the seal and
Yeah. Oh my
flying.
God, the seal, it's locked away. There's 7 parts of it, but you got to put them together,
It's
and then you
over-
open up the door.
Don't do it.
Over
Don't do
soul.
it.
Oh, but all of a sudden, Indiana Jones.
Exactly.
And Indiana Jones is actually a girl. What's up?
There, yeah, breaking the trope. But no, there are ones, wise old mentor, the Obi-Wan, Luke, Deckard, and Blade Runner type things. There's tropes I love, but I know what you're saying, that like it feels like fantasy doesn't need to go to tropes as often as it does, because it's like this is a genre that's built on being, fucking different for the sake of being different at points. But I will say, I think the fantasy I've enjoyed the most recently is actually books, because I feel like they have
Knowledge.
less risk in
Good
breaking
point, good
tropes,
point.
right? Like, when you're talking about like Elden Ring or any video game for that matter, like even like Dark Souls, like that first Dark Souls game is a risk, because like it's a fantasy game that's different from other fantasy games, and that it's fucking hard, and there's permadeath, and it's like, yeah, it's like a dark story, and like it doesn't really appeal to like, like the wider audience that might be more into like a whimsical fantasy a la like Zelda or like
You have
whatever
to be
the
a
case.
sadist to enjoy it.
Exactly. A sick masochist.
I died again. Oh, yes.
But
Kill
I feel
me
like
harder.
even like aesthetically, like I guess it's weird to say aesthetically when we talk about books, but like the world building in some books, Black Sun, another example, again, like pre-Columbia or colonial Southern American cultures, where it's like, you never see that in like fantasy video games or movies, because it's like it's like almost a step too far for studios to take. Like they're worried that like it won't appeal. I think like that's the reason why like Black Panther was such like a monumental film, because it was like,
what a great point. That is a fucking good point.
yeah, like I feel like
that
it's
is super
risky.
sick point. I've never thought about it like that, because it is risky. And like, if you think about the risk, like not saying, I guess the levels of risk, right? But like, if it's something that's kind of like, I want to say like taboo, but like uncomfortable to talk about, and you bring that element into I guess like I want to say, is it a fantasy as well? That book you're just talking about?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, that's super cool. That's like unique in its own genre. Like you're now like stepping into a place where it's, again, they're not token characters that you're putting
Right.
into the story to fit the narrative. Like that's something unique. And yeah, Black Panther as well. That is a really good example, because that movie was, when it was coming out, I wouldn't say there was like a lot of like hate towards it, but I think a lot of people were kind of like, oh, like they're just making this movie because like they need like to have representation, which is like true. But I guess like a lot of haters on it. But then you watch the movie and it's like some of the best arguably the best characters in the entire franchise.
Exactly.
Maybe,
Yeah.
In my opinion, like
right.
The music. And like,
Mhm.
even going to Wakanda, bro, you're in Wakanda and you're like, damn, this place is sick as fuck. Like,
Yeah.
Everything's flying. They got the fashion too, which is really, I love. That's my favorite part, was the whole, anyway, I'm not trying to take over
like
that.
the text. No.
No, like,
That's the thing too, right? Is like when we think of like fantasy, the aesthetic is always like that European setting.
Yeah, dude. I was like, dude, put me in a fucking, they had the little robe on the top that had all these different colors to it. I was like, fire me in that, man. I want the sandals gang, bro.
We gotta get that Photoshop going,
dude.
Yeah, no, I think like, when you see something like Black Panther, like even like just aesthetically, like the textiles and like the outfits they're wearing, like it immediately pulls you in, because you're like, I've never seen anything like this. This is like so cool to see. And like when I think when you go back, sci-fi is a little bit different, because like, but even sci-fi, sometimes you run into like generic like aesthetics.
Oh, sci-fi, 100%, bro. 100%.
Yeah.
Sci-fi is the milk that just never seems to thirst everybody. You just kind of, it's always the same shit, man. Which is fine. I mean, like, I'm coming from fucking Warhammer. Like, I'm such a huge Warhammer nerd. Like, it's pretty much the same shit. But I will add, like, onto your point, I've recently started getting to this guy called the Border Prince, and he's I highly recommend him. He does a lot of audiobooks on Spotify. Super cool stories. He's got a great like British voice that he throws around, does like a lot of stuff, but it's really cool because he does a lot of like unknown stories. So like, because a lot like in this universe, there's a lot of like planets, and it's always like huge hulking guys like fighting each other. But then you start getting to like these like a villager who's in like a backwater planet that's like the Middle Ages. So it's just like technology is like not really there, and you just like have a person going through their like daily struggle. And they just had this one about a girl that was like really cool, and it's kind of weird, but it's like there's like people that can shapeshift. It's like an ability, and it's in the assassins for the Imperium, but they changed her into like a Tyranid, which is like, so they can like change into like a human form, but they made it so she changed like full race. And it was such a unique story because like the gene stealers are like these like cult that essentially is they work for like the Tyranids. They like get involved and they like plant seeds and they create these like cults, and they're like mutated kind of, they're like half human, half not. And they're like, when the Tyranids come, they're gonna like save us. They end up just eating them. So it's like hilarious. But you like it's super funny because they're like, they're gonna save us. And it's like, oh, praise the gods. And then some big ass bugs like Z. But yeah,
even that like as a subversion of like in a regular using that trope as like I don't even know what you would call that, but like you know waiting for like divine intervention, and then it comes and it's like the worst fucking
worst thing ever. It's like literally a bug that wants to turn you into like matter to like create more. That's it.
Even that like creates for a more interesting story, right? Because
like I think the story, like to go back to the subject though, but like the story of like a assassin, like this high-end female assassin that's like used to like being like changing to different people to like finish her objective, to now like trying to do like an espionage mission against like these weird like half alien half human cultists. And it's like wild. And I was like sitting here, it was literally happening to me like 2 days ago. I listened to it and I was like at work and I was like, whoa, like this is like a whole different spectrum of the story. I've never been involved, and it's fun. And it's fun when you get sucked in like that, like going off like Black Panther, like any stories like that where you're like there's like a setting that you're used to, and then they just flip the whole table on you because they do like a weird, because I wouldn't say it's as touchy as like I guess like the social atmosphere of like colonization and like like the Black Panther or whatever, but it was like pretty risky because usually like all the people want to hear is like Space Marines bopping people,
right?
Bam. I want to see like people just absolutely getting wrecked, and you get these little micro stories and you're like, oh man, like
it's like a breath of fresh air almost.
100%. I think it's and like I guess like on the topic as well, like it's just fun to have that when you find stuff like that, and you can sit back and just, it's something completely new but it's familiar. That's the key. I think it's something that's new but it's familiar for you.
But like that's like when I think of like subverting like fantasy tropes, I think of like The Witcher, especially like with The Witcher 3. The video was like just like the approach to like fantasy monsters as being like just like an animal or like close or like kind of like the in between, like some of them are sentient but it's like they're a part of the ecology instead of being like this mythical creature. Like, oh yeah, here's this griffin, we have to kill it, it's like sent to fuck us up because of it been like shitty or something, but instead it's like then you have like Geralt and like other witches are like, nah, it's just like an animal that we just are gonna get paid to remove. But there's like this like empirical scientific way to like deal with it instead of just use a magic sword or something.
Yeah, it's more like a story of exterminators in a fantasy setting, opposed to these, monster slayers that are like renowned. It's just like a job type of
just
thing, right?
Ghostbusters, but fantasy.
Yeah, I even think like genre tropes, like something like The Witcher that takes like a more grimdark approach, where like you can tell that story is just like, yeah, I'm an exterminator, I carry a sword and cast magic spells,
and I'm hotter than sin, buddy.
That too. Do you guys have like your least favorite tropes of all time?
Yes.
What are yours?
Let's hear it.
The worst is I absolutely cannot stand just like the generic farm boy going off on a quest. That's probably my biggest one I dislike. Also, I'm not
the hero's journey.
Yeah, just like in general, but also the one thing I always hate, and it's always it's always the worst in movies is like the one training scene that they have just like randomly in a campfire, and then like all of a sudden this chosen character can just like annihilate anyone. That
Yeah.
always bugs me.
Mary Sue characters and the
Yeah,
hero's
yeah.
journey. That's those sort of combination pisses you off.
Kind of, yeah, but like mostly just because it's we've seen it so many times, so
Yeah.
broke me in other ways.
What about you, Jack?
Oh, I was literally trying to scan the data.
I'll stall for time here by saying some of mine.
Yeah, fire it
The
up.
one I fucking hate the most is Will, you've heard me talk about this before.
Oh yeah,
the-
big guys.
No, that's yours. Ancient love affairs. So you got like a vampire who falls in love with a teenage girl, or is like an ancient elf falls in love with it, or an immortal fucking being falls in love with like this fucking young woman or like girl in most cases. I fucking can't stand it. It's creepy as fuck. I hate modern stories who tell this. Like, I don't know how you're getting published. It's fucking weird. Stop it. Cut it
Twilight?
out. Cut the
Is
shit.
that a shot at Twilight?
It could, yeah.
In our
Twilight,
unreleased,
yeah.
there's like a 45-minute rant by Matt about this.
They're totally
Unreleased.
unreleased. Yeah,
You gotta
no,
call Chris Hansen, bro. We want no Hunter man.
Chris Hansen of fantasy.
Yeah, I don't need. I
Hansen of
Chris
fantasy.
Hansen. I called you Chris Hansen. I came from man's movie.
No, I can't. I don't know. It creeps me out. I hate reading about it. You can never spin it in a sexy way. It's always gross. Fuck off. I don't care if they still look young. That makes it even weirder. There's a book called
Forbidden Love and illegal.
Super forbidden, legally forbidden. A book called A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, I think. A book that I loved halfway through, and when it gets to the halfway point, it gets like revealed that like it's all about like this weird love affair thing, and I was like, yo, what the fuck? Like, just ruined like what was up until that point like a great book for me. And I can't stand it. I used to feel bad about saying that because I wasn't sure if they were a successful author, but they are very successful. So I'll just, have the hot take on it and say, fuck that shit. That's creepy and weird. But it is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. So I don't know. But in Beauty and the Beast, he wasn't like ancient. He was just like a normal guy.
It's a little bestiality, it's spice it up.
Yeah, I guess that's weird too. Anyways.
Uncommon. Oh my god, you could do a little bestiality Twilight, man.
Subverting tropes.
I don't want to see you in your human form. Let's see you in your beast form.
Oh my god.
Oh, woof. I do have mine. I hate characters that are just like overpowered for the sake of overpowered. Like, they don't show like any montage. They just like throw you in. It's kind of like Macho Man, where you're just like not Macho Man, not like Macho Man, but like the like, because you make the person that's like really like I'm not saying like not females aren't funny, but like it's a character that's just like written, or like a female character that's just like written, and it's like just not like, it's not funny, or they're like trying to like overcome on something, and it's like you're not like fitting the bill. Same thing with like a macho guy. You're just like, yeah, I can shoot down anybody I need to be, and you just like, no, there's no story of like how this guy is as good as you. Just like, he is what he is, I guess. You can make the argument for a lot of 90s movies, but those are just classics. So
my biggest point too in that example is Goku, which I know I'll get vilified for.
That was also in our first episode.
Yeah, I literally did 45 minutes on why Dragon Ball Z sucks ass. Because
let those plebs, bro. Let those plebs come, man.
I hate power levels that rise just for the sake of rising. Because if they don't rise, then there will be no stakes, right?
Over 9,000.
If Goku doesn't fight somebody who's stronger than him, then he doesn't have to get stronger. So he has to get stronger to beat this guy. But now he's so strong that someone who's stronger than him has to come so he can do it again. And it's just like nothing's ever important. Like,
oh man, you're sitting there and you're just like, Goku can like, every time he just fights, he just gets better and better. And
we have to stall time so Goku can come
Dr.
back.
Manhattan, who can control atoms and like literally melt people. Like,
it's wild that Dr. Manhattan is a more interesting character than Goku. Like,
I mean, you
just
get to see
think
some
about
blue
that.
cock,
Like,
bro. That's different, man. You get to see some blue cock. You fooling
yeah,
around.
like you
six
get
pack,
no, you get no like character
Original
got his palm
development.
feathers, bro. He's got an absolute rig on him.
It doesn't have a
Goku's been
penis,
around
he
for
has a
like
cock.
fucking 40 years, dude. There's like zero character development.
Yeah,
You
he's
get like one fucking graphic novel of Dr. Manhat, and you're like, wow, this character's much better, even though it's
Yeah.
like power levels, like, you know, at this point, Goku's a
he's literally
god.
floating around Mars naked, ass cheeks out, building shit. Tell me what you building, Goku? Nothing.
Double cheeked up, Bill.
Yeah, double cheeked out on a
Making
Tuesday afternoon. in
clockwork
Mars.
cities.
Yeah.
I will say
Fucking
though,
hell.
my favorite character is
Space
Vegeta.
Hammer.
Though. I will say, not that we're getting too into it. But I love Vegeta. It's my boy.
But like Vegeta is almost just like a contrast to Goku, and like he's
Yeah.
a dude who actually has a personality.
Yeah, like he has like motivation to be better.
He should be
Yeah,
the main. I think he's
better than
the argument for
Goku.
main character. Man. He should
And
be
like
the
there's a
lead.
scene of Vegeta like freaking out on the god of destruction because he slapped his wife. And you're like, oh, that's progression. You didn't used to care about anyone. And Goku is all just like, I'm here to make shitty jokes and punch people. You're like, fuck, man.
Look at my veins.
Yeah.
It's soup.
Anyways, I think that about wraps up the show here for today. Jack, thanks for coming on.
Anytime, boys. Always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure.
We're looking forward to hearing about your game.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to share it, man. I can't wait to share it.
Just another reminder for people out there, on last Saturday, and this coming Saturday, you can check our reviews for the Wheel of Time. It's coming out every Friday. So make sure you're watching that on Amazon Prime. And then Saturday morning, come check out our review. And also watch out for our D&D games and our Star Wars show reviews that'll come out soon. Yeah, again, thanks, Jack, for coming. And as always, I'm Matt.
I will.
And I'm Jack.
And we are the Lords of Lore. Right on.